Next up, I've got Ros Godber, Head of Marketing at the Jamie Oliver Group.
Thank you, Sam. And thank you to Tess for inviting me to talk here today. I'm not talking about AI, but I do want to talk to you about how important it was for us to speak to consumers as we were looking at our social purpose strategy. You might recognise this guy. We signed on with a test about 18 months ago, and one of the first things we did was run a brand and audience survey in the UK. And it told us that the awareness of Jamie in the UK is 98%. I don't think that will surprise everyone in this room, anyone in this room. And you probably feel like you know Jamie quite well, so that's not the big reveal for today, you'll be pleased to know. But just a few bits that you might not know. Jamie is the second best-selling British author in the UK behind J.K. Rowling. And he's the best-selling British non-fiction author since they started recording it. He's sold over 50 million books worldwide in 36 languages. He's the second most Googled chef in the world. He's won Emmy and a BAFTA for his TV work. And we've got a large social following of over 36 million. Obviously, that's a global audience. But the one that we are proud of is that last year, we, looking at the reach figures, reached 165 million people in some way who were inspired to cook or eat healthily through some form of Jamie Oliver content, whether that be through book, through digital content, TV, etc. There's a lot on this slide, but this charts some of the moments on the journey Jamie's been on since he first published Naked Chef 25 years ago. And for the eagle-eyed among you, you might remember some of these moments. So Jamie, in 2002, opened a restaurant called 15, where the chefs and the staff who worked there had come from disadvantaged backgrounds. He was very passionate about that. Later on, he went into schools and launched the School Dinners campaign in 2005, made a programme campaigning for or looking at what food we were giving children in schools and really starting a conversation, quite polarising actually, on how it should be improved. He also campaigned successfully for a sugar tax, so that money could go back into improving child health and making sure that there was less sugar, particularly in the fizzy drinks that we give our kids. And more recently in the pandemic, Keep Cooking and Carry On was a programme that Jamie shot on his iPhone during the pandemic to try and just be useful to people who had very little in their cupboards. Through his career, Jamie has been a campaigner and a passionate advocate for everybody having access to good food, good, delicious, nutritious food. And this quote is from a TED talk he gave where he says, "I profoundly believe that the power of food has a primal place in our lives that binds us to the best bits of life." It's really fundamental to what he believes. And that informs our purpose as a brand, which is to build a healthier, happier world through the joy of food. So I just wanted to put up this slide here, which shows how we take that as a brand to work towards enabling people to have a better and more joyful mealtime. And there are very different touch points that people have with the brand. So through the media, books and TV to inspire people, through restaurants on the ground so people can come together round the table and connect over a shared experience with food and experiment. Products which enable people to cook, cookware or food products and enjoy a good meal. And then what I want to talk about today, which is our Ministry of Food, which is our social impact vertical where we are going out there really trying to drive change. So today I'm looking at how we use consumer insight to support a relaunch of the Ministry of Food. We wanted to expand the Ministry of Food. This was about 18 months ago. We had a new CEO come into the business and we had a kind of reset moment. And we decided to bring together the various activities, social purpose activities, that some of which you saw on that slide, under the Ministry of Food umbrella. So we've been delivering various programmes to support our social purpose work in these kind of three buckets for a number of years. Ministry of Food was actually launched 15 years ago. And it had existed as a food education programme, but as I say, it felt like the right moment to relaunch it. So in schools, there'd been various programs through the years, going into schools, teaching children how to cook or, how to grow food in their gardens, in primary and secondary. And Jamie's obviously also been a keen advocate for universal access to free school meals. In the community, we started with 5 Ministry of Food centres in the UK. You might remember seeing the one in Rotherham and the TV show. There are currently 27 centres, and that's where people in the community, there's a Learn to Cook programme, so it's like a 12 hours where you can learn to cook different meals. And then on the right there, workplace, that's where the Jamie Oliver Group, Ministry of Food, can go to the workplace, partner with the workplace and teach people in the workplace who cook to then teach their peers how to cook. So last year, our focus was very much on food education as we look to expand the Ministry of Food. And this is where we utilise consumer research. So we were focused on the UK mainly. So we wanted to roll out a schools pilot, which was an innovative new programme where we would go into schools, not just teaching primary school age children how to cook, but primary and secondary how to cook, but also how to eat well, what healthy food looks like, how to make good food choices, sustainability, food waste. So it's quite a broad scheme. We're also continuing to campaign for access to free school meals and for child health. And then also we wanted to look at a way to celebrate the great work that's already being done in schools, to champion it and to actually start a national conversation. And then on the right, we were also thinking about the US. So Jamie's published books and had TV shows in the US for many years, but that's an area of focus for us as a business. And we were looking at the right way to enter that market in the social purpose space. And we were thinking that a schools pilot would be the right thing to do. And we were so we are so passionate about this that we also announced a new circular funding model where we put a proportion of our profits towards the Ministry of Food. So all the other touch points that I showed you, media, restaurants and product, towards the Ministry of Food. So we expect that number to be £450,000 this year, and that will fund new Ministry of Food centres. So looking at what we did, as I said, when we first brought a test, signed up to a test, we ran these brand and audience surveys in our 4 key growth markets. So the UK, US, Australia and Germany. And perceptions of Jamie and the brand associations are really consistent across all 4 markets, probably because Jamie is really an authentic figure. He's just so himself when you see him. So in all markets, Jamie's really well known for his food education. So after chef credentials and healthy eating, it's the 3rd thing people most associate him with out of a prompted list of 12. The other thing is that the personality associations, again, are really consistent. People consider him to be passionate, knowledgeable, down to earth, creative and fun. And his personality kind of comes up a lot when we're talking to consumers. It's like, that Jamie-ness, what does Jamie bring? And not everyone loves him. Course, not everyone likes him, but positive sentiment is really strong, and then it's just, he's got very much his own style. So we decided to run a survey specifically on attitudes to food education in schools, free school meals, as well as the role Jamie could play, because historically we'd used desk research, but also we'd used our own quite sizable UK database, or asked our social audiences what they thought about various activities. And that's before we had access to a consumer research platform. And of course, the problem with that always is that, number one, a lot of people in our database and on social channels are Jamie sycophants. Yeah, they're huge fans, and so they always see the positive. So you're very much shouting into an echo chamber. And also, it's the same people who answer surveys that you put out there. So we ran this survey, and it was really helpful, really, for validation of our plans and points that we could talk to people about. So, almost 4 in 5 people think food education is as important as English, maths or PE. That's like a really big headline, and actually you think, wow, these are really important subjects and people believe this is a really important thing to be talking about. Only 1/3 of people thought school-age children understood what a healthy diet was. This topic is really relevant. There's a knowledge gap for our children. we saw that actually there was huge support for consumers thinking that children should be taught practical cooking in school. And when I was a child, it was taught in school, but now it is a small part of a DT curriculum usually. 4 out of 5 people would trust Jamie to deliver food education in schools. Obviously, we do know from the surveys that I mentioned that Jamie's known for food education. We also know that people really trust Jamie. They trust his expertise. They trust that he'll deliver delicious, nutritious food. There's really strong trust in him. And actually here people said, yes, Jamie could do it, but also when we asked them who else could do it, he was a clear leader. The only other celebrity chef who was mentioned was Gordon, at a much lower level, and teachers obviously would also be trusted. And what I just wanted to show with this slide really was that I think as we were sort of mapping out our plans last year and putting together our kind of case studies and our proposals, both in terms of what we were going to do and also then garnering the support that we really need to deliver these programmes. When you're looking at the current situation and wanting to talk about what the problems are, there's a lot of desk research out there. They're quite well documented, like the rising cost of ingredients in the cost of living, lack of equipment in schools, staff shortages in schools. But actually for us, consumer research was so helpful in terms of finding the solutions and how we talked about them. So as we defined our ambition to raise the profile of cooking at school, make it fun, inspiring, delicious, those are exactly the values and the attributes that people use when they're talking about Jamie. That's his style, that's what he's known for, in a space that could be seen to be quite worthy as well. In terms of supporting teachers with engaging resources, it's important then to actually really understand what is needed and where the gaps are, because I think, Jamie has a huge amount of knowledge. We've got many years behind us, but I think, we have definitely seen and learnt from over the years mistakes where, to go out and presume you know everything and you presume you know what people want can actually be hugely unhelpful and damaging. And, certainly Jamie and the brand learned a lot from that first foray into schools in 2005. And then when we're calling on the government to support the future of food and food education, having statistics and validation is just so hugely important as you write those think pieces and proposals. And then, as I said, going out to partners to ask for funding. And so just very briefly, in terms of the schools education pilot, the work that the survey informed, is landing really, really well. So that pilot is underway. There are 10,000 kids in the programme, so that's 44 schools already signed up. Are already signed up and in the programme, and we've got another almost 200 who will be signing up by the end of the year. We're working with Leeds University to evaluate the programme, so objectively and independently, to make sure that we can actually record, because we want to demonstrate that through going through this programme, children build their knowledge and build their confidence. We want an independent evaluator to show the progress that is being made. And then, as I said, there's a rollout plan in progress to get more schools on board. And then some of you will have seen and heard of the Good School Food Awards. So we're in the second year of the Good School Food Awards now. It's absolutely just like joyous, really. But we've partnered with The One Show and The Sun are our media partners to give us the coverage. We've got corporate partners who have sponsored the awards, so TFAL, and we're supported also by BBC and Global. But essentially, that is going out at the start of the year and asking people to nominate the people in the schools that they know of who are doing amazing things. Kitchen staff, school cooks, anybody really who's going, above and beyond to give the children in our schools a really decent school lunch. And we had such an amazing response last year. There are celebrity judges, judges who come from all walks of life, Mary Berry, people who Jamie knows, who've wanted to come on board with this. It was just a beautiful event. And then when the judges, the winners were announced last June, we got a lot of coverage from it. And so, again, being able to take that story, demonstrate action and progress and keep going with the national conversation is hugely important to kind of give profile to these causes. In terms of the US, it was extremely helpful to speak to people there. As I said, if you get it wrong, and if you go into a market or anywhere and telling people what they want or what they need, it's often not very well received. So we ran a survey in the US just to really understand whether Ministry of Food could succeed there. And we developed the questionnaire with input from a US consultant who we work with in this space on the ground in the US, which was hugely helpful as well. So the objectives were really to understand attitudes around learning to cook, nutrition, food education, very similar to the UK, but also to understand whether something like the Good School Food Awards, something that could add profile to the campaign and kind of galvanise people, would be appropriate there. I mean, the States is physically a huge country. And then we also wanted to sense check whether Ministry of Food as a name was actually going to be appealing. We had a flag from an internal stakeholder that the word ministry in the US is probably still more closely associated with religion than over here, and there were concerns that perhaps might be an issue for us. So this is a snapshot of some of the results of that survey around the attitudes to food education. And it was interesting for us, it was great, like tick, 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 yes. When it comes to the kids, overwhelmingly people agree that it's really important that they learn to cook for their physical health, for their mental health. So no surprises there, but that was really helpful to validate what we wanted to do. But also actually that statistic on the right, the school lunches are nutritious, fewer than half agreed. So it's like, okay, great. So there is a job to be done there. There is some way that value can be added. And then actually we asked more generally about kind of learning to cook from scratch as a skill. And we asked across schools and just more generally, like adults learning to cook. And what we saw from those two boxes on the right, that yes, lots of people would like their employer to offer a cooking course. Yes, learning to cook in the workplace would be a benefit, but actually overwhelmingly, people were more engaged and keen to see action in schools. So, going there with our 3 buckets of activity for Ministry of Food, we knew that schools and young people would be the right focus. So I won't go too much into the detail because I'm just mindful of time, but I think it was helpful. We asked questions around the Good School Food Awards, and actually we saw that it was relevant and appealing as a concept, but actually the awards themselves need to be slightly different for the US, and it threw up kind of interest more around food activism and kind of going beyond cooking, other themes and topics. And so that informed then what we did in terms of the plan. And just on the naming point, again, I think it was just helpful to give us confidence with our plans, because Ministry of Food wasn't the most appealing name that we threw out there and tested. But that said, it was considered to feel extremely relevant to Americans. It was very relevant for Jamie to be associated with it. Only 1% of respondents thought it sounded religious, so we could put that concern to bed and we could move forward with confidence, saying, okay, another name might perform better, but this is our Ministry of Food is the name for all of our activity globally, and so we should just have the confidence to move forward with that. And so I can just update that this year we've got 3 pilots that are underway at the moment. And another thing that we saw, and actually we'd learned through history anyway, was that it's really important for Jamie to partner with somebody on the ground, or people on the ground, so that what we're going and doing is really relevant, respectful, and appropriate. So we're working with Common, who's a music artist in the States, for those of you who don't know, because I didn't, who is partnered with us, founded a school, and then we've got some after-school programs as well. And we've also pitched, are pitching over there for support and sponsorship to launch the Food Oscars, which we're calling the Foscars. So not the Good School Food Awards, but same principle, using Ministry of Food as a brand vehicle, Jamie convening a group of celebrity friends who are all passionate about food, food education and the health of America's kids. So the kind of focus is the same, but together they will showcase those people who are doing great things in the culinary space, in the education space, sustainability stars and food activists. So it's a broader proposition. So you can just imagine how that might come to life in terms of, celebrating urban farming innovation, for example, and being able to tell those stories. So it's a bit of a whistle stop, but in summary, I think for us, the benefit is that the quant data that we can provide really validates our plans. Those are plans which we are taking to so many different people to try and do something brave and new and different in a space, or ask for support, financial support, sponsorship support, as we roll those plans out. Also, actually, sometimes resources for research and insight generation can actually be quite hard to come by, particularly in the charitable space. So having the tool and being able to share what we found is important. And then also, I think, there are other measures to measure progress. There's the hard evidence of numbers, etc. But measuring our progress through regular surveys is a way that keeps us accountable and keeps driving momentum as well. So that's it. Just to also say, if any of you or your brands would love to be involved in any of this, and we're always looking for support with our school pilots, for the Good School Food Awards themselves, for sponsorship, or even in local community centres. Just by way of an example, with some of the school holiday programmes, we need people to go and teach the teachers. So there's always different ways for brands to get involved, and we'd love to hear from anyone who would like to be.
Thank you very much, Ros. I think we can all conclude that Ros is a very busy person. Okay, I just want to do a quick bit of research myself. Can you put your hand up if you were taught cookery at school? What would you say that is? About half, I would say. And compare that with 95% of us think we should. Okay, quick look at Slido. What shall I ask? What is the most surprising thing you've learnt from your data research? I always love that question.
Oh, and that is a very good question. What is the most surprising thing I've learned from the data research? And we're quite sort of early underway. I think that's a good call. I think actually what I was really surprised by was that in Germany, the awareness of Jamie is at nearly 88%, but the positive sentiment and positive and neutral sentiment to him is at 97%, which is even higher than in the UK. That really surprised me. But Jamie is a very popular author in Germany, and he has also been over there over the years in a campaigning capacity. And I think, that kind of combination of both, the content that he provides, but that kind of real campaigning and social purpose work is really respected and valued there.
Amazing. Okay, thank you so much, Ros.